but for those who are, I guess, less familiar with the equation that I've seen on your website, as well as which embodies a lot of your work, money plus people equals milestones. Can you explain what that means as you would to a 5-year-old?
Great question. So once someone has an idea to start a medical device company, it starts with a human being, right? It's a shower idea, it's a napkin idea. There's no money involved. It's nothing but an idea. There's this growing, very early first days of the idea, growing pains of it usually is people. We'll call them founders, bootstrapping, working for free, moonlighting, whatever it may be. But once that phase is over, once that founder, very, very first days of foundership is over, they have to look outside for something, for more people, for more money, or money in general. They have to look outside. There's a threshold point where founders have to look outside. I mean, unless you're some already multiple serial entrepreneur who's made $1 billion personally and you can seed your own company, and right. I mean, those are very few exceptions between, but typically the founders come together as human being and then they have to look outside. 99.9% of the time, that is for money first, because they need that money to do what they're doing for whatever that founding team looks like. But then they need to then eventually start building a team, right? So typically, and like I alluded to before, all these startups that I would be working with that eventually were like, I would love to work with you. I would love for you to build my team. I just need to close on my Series A. I need to close on my Series B in a couple of weeks and I'll give you a call. So money comes first. And once they have that money, it's not like 3 people in a garage who close on a Series B of 30 million, stop right there, and they just execute on that $30 million to go hit that next milestone of, is it first in man? Is it running and successfully closing a 100-person clinical trial and taking that data set and writing a PMA and submitting that to the FDA and getting approval, and then all of a sudden they're ready to commercialize? And no, when you close that 30 million, the first thing that you do is start going out and hiring people, because you need that human capital, that human resource to come in and then start delegating micro or focused tasks to then satiate the greater good to then hit that milestone. Because when you're raising that capital, when those founders or whatever stage that the company is at, that CEO or that founder is looking into the eyes of the investor and they're pitching a story, which is usually all that they have, typically speaking, wrapped around a product. And they're saying, Mr. or Mrs. Investor, if you give me this money, this is the value creation that I will create with that money, which is not jumping right to the end line. It's jumping to a milestone. If I raise a $10 million Series A for a Class 3 device, I am hoping that I get to design freeze and maybe a first-in-man test. Go through V&V, a design freeze. I put it maybe in one human, or just right before one human, I got to go raise a Series B to get there, right? But you're telling a story as to what Series A is going to get me. Then it's on the operational execution team to drive to that milestone, utilizing that money that they raised, so that then they have their next milestone in sight and the story repeats. So after the founders, they go out and raise capital, money. Once they get that money, they hire people so that they can have the resources to hit the milestone. So money plus people equals milestone. And you have that on repeat until an exit, which is either an IPO going public, an acquisition, or unfortunately closing the doors and it's a failure.